then. And good afternoon and welcome. We're live to this e-Memoir session in association with PAM Education. And today we're going to be looking at developing new training programs and qualifications to meet employer demand. With a special focus today on Chinese Culinary Arts. And we're joined by Beej Kaczmarczyk of e-Memoir and Russell Grocott of PAM Education. I'll let everybody do the introductions in just a second. But we like to keep our webinars as interactive as possible, so please feel free to contact us using the question on chat facility at any point throughout the duration of this webinar. If you're watching it on a video recording and you have any questions, you'll have all the contact details at the end there. I'd encourage you to share this video recording and the slides, which we'll also provide you with members of your team, perhaps with other employers as well. And let's get the discussion and dialogue going. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Beej, Russell and Zhao for introductions. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. It's Beej Kaczmarczyk here from e-Memoir, and particularly to those of you that have had a holiday break and are returning to work, welcome back. Hope you're all healthy. And those of you that might have not been on one of our webinars before, we hope you find this first one of interest and informative and come back to some of the ones that we're going to do in future. This is the latest in the series that e-Memoir has been doing with PAM Education. So let me just introduce our two other speakers that are going to join us, Russell and Zhao. Could you just say a few words about yourselves?
Yeah, hi, it's Russell here. I'm co-founder of PAM Education with Zhao Li, and we're both here today really to sort of talk you through the experience that we've gained over the last 2 years and how the need for this collaborative creating collaborative partnerships is going to be more valuable as we go through the next let's say, somewhat chaotic stage of business development in terms of Brexit and really great changes across the system caused by technology and other advances. And Zhao Li, she's a co-founder. She's with me. I'll let her introduce herself.
Oh, hi. This is Zhao Li. Very nice to be in here today. And as Russ introduced, that we've been working on a few projects in the last 18 months, and all of which centered upon developing a new collaborative framework to develop qualifications and training programs to meet the needs of the market, and also to see how we can drive the vocational related education forward. Yeah.
Great, thanks very much for those introductions. And I think, as I said, today we're going to focus on one aspect of developing new training programs and qualifications, which is Chinese Culinary Arts. But as we've already hinted, these lessons that we've learned from the project and the projects have got wider applications, as Russ said, possibly to skill shortages after Brexit. And I think more significantly to changes in the technology of industry and commerce, which will have implications, obviously, for the nature of the technology of learning and of training. And I think with that in mind, with the ever-changing landscape and uncertainties about the future shape of industries, including catering and hospitality in the UK and also further afield, because this is looking at an international dimension, employers are looking to address new demands through increasingly innovative approaches in terms of the way that learning occurs, but also in more collaborative approaches. And I hope this next 40 to 45 minutes provides you with opportunities as a provider or as an employer to work closely with each other to develop some of those new programs, those new courses, could be, of course, linked to apprenticeship standards that will increasingly meet the needs of employers, and particularly employers going through quite significant change. And I think there's some key messages here in this slide, aren't there, Russell?
Yes, yeah. Key, obviously, is about giving an opportunity for everyone really to develop from grassroots level through to masters. And what we were very keen to put in place was progression pathways that were available to everyone. So whether or not they want to go a university route or whether they want to stay within employment or go vocational education pathway, it was really important for us that the whole program give a vast range of choice to people anywhere in the world. And this is why the Culinary Arts program was given a UK, we sought to get a UK regulated qualification on the framework that would be available anywhere in the world. And this is I think it was actually the first one in terms of Chinese standards that was then transferred and onto the UK framework. So it's very important, and in our work with the employers as well, we got the feedback that that's what they wanted. They wanted a very clear progression pathway that enabled them to support their employees to go from basic standards right through to however high they wanted to achieve. And that really was one of the big foundations for the program. And from the Chinese point of view, that's what they wanted to achieve as well, that the standards and the authentic Chinese culinary arts standards were being delivered worldwide, because they were very aware that a lot of the skills were being lost just through really the evolution of time and the fact that the skills weren't being passed on correctly, certainly outside of China.
And I think that's a key message, and I think one of the learning from the work you've been doing in the project is that this is not just about meeting basic needs and basic skill needs. It's from those entry points right up to postgraduate, particularly when we're looking at some of the higher skill levels that relate also to new technologies and of course to higher and degree apprenticeships. So this is this upskilling of large parts of industry and commerce. And again, I think the key message here is that as we do this in a collaborative way, employers are not just engaged. And I think the key message from what we're going to talk about in the next 40 minutes or so is that employers are also involved. So they're involved in the design, they're involved in the delivery, the quality assurance, etc. So what we're going to cover, and what Russell and the rest of his team are going to cover, is why is this happening? What are the changes in the restaurant industry, the catering industry, that necessitate this? Why is this new program needed? And some of those sort of factors we already described before we started, but we'll repeat them. How the culinary arts program actually helps to meet those needs. What its possible dimensions are in terms of expanding it into apprenticeships and the role of a trailblazer group here. And the key message from what has been said so far is that this is a collaborative model of working. It creates a framework that not only ensures that the programs are actually meeting demand, and that's not just current demand, but future demand, and articulate it in a way which makes sense to the employer, because remember, they don't use our language, they don't use the language of education and training, but also to make sure that it's got wider applications, as we said. And obviously, all the way through, we're going to be focusing on what we can learn from this project and this program. So what was very much, why has it come about? Why is this program needed?
Well, Jolie, probably you're the best one to, yeah.
Well, there are really a few dimensions into that question, if I may say so. I think from a Chinese perspective, they do realize outside of China, the Chinese catering industry, in a way, is declining. And also, especially the standards of nutrition and the concept of Chinese dining, everything is, following the disappearance of the older generation who just came out of, China and migrant to all over the world. A lot of things has been lost, either in the translation or in a way they're lost in the local culture. So, and also in China, there is a trend, I must say, because from government perspective, what they wanted to emphasize is the vocational education, comparing to the traditional academic route. They want to encourage more students, youngsters, get into vocational related education and find a job and can build up their career. So those are the two main factors that, they for the reason they approached us and wanted us to help them develop a transnational learning program that can, to begin with, is to introduce Chinese technical standards, vocational technical standards out to the UK or through UK to the rest of the world, and also helping them to pilot a collaborative model that can encourage more students get into vocational related route. So that is one element of the reason why this program came into about. And the other one, what we identified from this market, especially in the UK market, it is the Chinese catering industry is dying. It's not just it is real. It's because the UK-born Chinese, they don't see Chinese restaurants or Chinese catering as a career that they can pursue. They believe it is just a low-end job. There are several reasons into it. I think the main thing is because there's no qualification. So basically, and that also limited the movement of a lot of kitchen staff. Because at the moment there's no standard, there's no qualification, so it's all purely based on their experience at a particular kitchen. But if they want to move to another kitchen, their experience may be or may not be recognized. And also, a lot of the Chinese catering or Chinese cuisine is a very low threshold industry. It feels like everybody that they can, as long as they claim they can cook Chinese, and they can open up a takeaway. So for all sorts of reasons, which we believe is because there's no standards, technical standards or services standards. So there is we can clearly see a need from the UK market, and we also clearly see a need for Chinese to introduce their technical standards. So we wanted to be the one that make to make the collaboration work. That's how the whole program started.
Yeah. And what I would say here is that collaboration is not just one way. There are opportunities, and because of the success of this course, we are able to access funding for collaboration the other way in other areas. So, for example, there's a real shortage of early years learning teachers in China, and also management of those programs. So it's not just about catering. This is the whole collaboration. Is also we are able to manage, and we're talking to various people, including the National Day Nurses Association, to make this work the other way as well, so that we can send qualified and trained Chinese nursery school teachers, and that's just not those two things. There's many other opportunities, and I think as well, this again, once this sort of collaboration works, and especially on an international level, then you get the commercial interests also wanting to be involved. So it is what we hope we have created is a win-win, not just for China and the UK, but also for everyone that's part of the collaboration.
Just got a question there. Who have you actually worked with in China? Who are your partners?
Okay.
Yeah.
Go on, Jelly.
Well, our partners, we have a Tianjin Municipal Education Commission. We have a Tianjin Food Group, which is the biggest state-owned enterprises in Tianjin, and 80% of the food that consumed by the population in that city is come from this company. And this company has more than 20 subsidiary companies, which the businesses span from land
farming,
from farming to fine dining, and also we work with Tianjin School of Cuisine, who is on behalf of the government developed the 5 training modules for chefs, for professional chefs.
And is the Chinese Culinary Association also involved?
Oh, yes. Chinese Culinary Association and Tianjin Culinary Association. They all of which are behind us.
I think the other question that's come up here is that isn't it cheaper just to get Chinese chefs from China to come over?
Shall I?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, far from the case. So the average cost now, due to various additional requirements to get the visa, we were talking to some restaurant owners, and somewhere between 15,000 and 20,000 pounds per chef is the cost of actually enabling them to arrive in the country. And the real big one is that they also now earn more in China as chefs than they do in the UK. So the financial need is not there. So, it's a whole cultural difference, and money is not the driver anymore.
And the other sort of point I think that's just been raised is that the world of catering and hospitality is changing, whether it be China or anywhere else. Is there in this program, and maybe you'll pick this up in the detail, is it also looking at the latest cooking technologies, greener kitchens, energy efficiency, environmental things?
Yeah. Yes, definitely. Tianjin Education Commission has already, released some funding, and with the help of Tianjin, we have already established the first Chinese Culinary Training Kitchen at Crawley College, part of the Chichester College group. So now in there we have 7 induction walk. So and also we're working with catering Target Catering, who is a UK designer for new energy kitchen.
All right. So the collaboration also extends to organisations in the UK.
Yes. Definitely. Yeah. And we sort of established the channel between the Target Catering company with a Chinese manufacturing company who produce the induction wok, and to see how those wok, the induction wok can be introduced to the parts can be introduced to the UK, and to be part of the solution, the new kitchen solution.
That's good. Yeah. So your program's been created for, do you want to say a few words about this, Russell?
Yeah, sure. So basically, it's all about integration between the two communities. So when we set out to do the program, we found out a lot about the reality of both communities. So we spent a lot of time in Tianjin looking at how the students there worked, and then how they got work placement. And there's a very real opportunity. So, for example, one of the examples we picked up on was how the Tianjin School of Cuisine, as a version of an FE college, would actually go out to employers, find out what they need, do a diagnostic on exactly what they needed from the workforce, and then they would actually sign commercial agreements with the companies to provide the workforce exactly in the way that the company wanted it to deliver. So we picked up on things like that. And then, of course, one of the things was about the changing culture as well. So the changing culture of the way young people in both countries don't sit down together for meals and takeaways, order by apps. So it's really important that the details of the program took on board the reality of what this new generation of people is going to really be happy with, if you like. And so things like the induction woks and much better working conditions in kitchens. The perception was that, to work in a Chinese kitchen, it was like 130 degrees for like 5 hours of the day, in these huge, difficult conditions to work in. But actually, by integrating the induction woks, those conditions are much, much more improved. And what we wanted to do was really create a team ethic between the education providers, the employers, and ourselves, so that everyone was working together around a program that everyone knew they had an important part to play. And we felt the only way that if we did this, it was the only way that we would change the perception and make a reality that young people not born in China, so people born outside of China, can actually have a really valuable career within the Chinese catering industry. And it could be that would extend beyond just being a chef. It could be they could go into nutrition, and it could be they could go into all sorts of sidelines, if you like, that stem from Chinese food culture, because the reason it's so important is because it absolutely links to the definition of China as a country and the culture. And a lot of the healthy things and nutrition, and they're all becoming now like 5 a day, really actually stems from Chinese culture. So the opportunity was that we could take the best of what was there and then put it on top of a modern day living requirements, modern day working requirements in a way that would enable a young person to say, yeah, I can see a career working within the Chinese food industry that starts from learning the basics and goes through to being a master. So, and just in terms of financial reality, a Chinese chef in this country probably earns now 20 to 35% more than the equivalent chef working in a UK restaurant. So that obviously highlights both the lack of supply and demand, but it also highlights how real it is to get a good job in this industry. So it was all about integrating the diversification. It was all about maximizing the technology, both in terms of the equipment used, but also in the way the programs are delivered. So, we use e-learning and webinars and use the latest technology because we felt that we had to change this perception of a job working in the Chinese culinary arts industry to a reality of what it can be like. And so we took the actions, if you like, to try and make it happen. And that also included, finally, we found it was very necessary that we had to have a fairly high level marketing campaign associated to the program that went through the social media as well as the more formal marketing areas, and that proved very successful. As we see later on, we've got some really high profile people within the industry wanting now to be part of the collaboration and join us in developing this program.
I suppose one of the questions that's being posed when you say multidisciplinary teams, one of the points that's been raised by one of our listeners is that these teams have also got to include, obviously, the inputs from Chinese chefs. How's that been done?
So sorry, Shelley. Yes. So basically, the learning content. There's two ways that we've achieved this. The learning content includes, I think it's 204 very, very high quality videos that have all been made by Chinese master chefs. So the actual learning content is fundamentally based on Chinese master chefs, and those chefs were the ones that actually wrote the standards that now map onto the Chinese standards delivered in that country. So it's the same chefs that wrote the national standards have produced and delivered the content that is part of our learning program. And also those chefs will come over, they will deliver the assessment, part of the assessments, which are delivered every term. They will also come over and deliver short courses. So we can break the content of the qualification down into like dim sum courses or Chinese pastry. And the Chinese master chefs will come over to the UK and deliver those. And the third element is that there will also be, in certain parts of the learning program, there'll be live webinars across to Tianjin, and they have supplied all that equipment for the Chinese College group. So there'll be live webinars with the Chinese master chefs as well.
I suppose just before you come in, I think the point that I just wanted to reinforce is that the aim of this program is to first of all, I think, make sure that there's a good supply of good expertise of Chinese culinary experts in both China and the rest of the world. It isn't just a UK focused, although that's where we've put a lot of the emphasis. And I think the second thing is that there's that constant sharing of expertise across the world is another aspect of it. So it's not about losing the skills, it's about enhancing the skills.
Yeah. And also the opportunity, and it's already happened with the Chinese College group staff, the opportunity is there for UK staff to go to Tianjin to be trained by those master chefs.
Yeah, that's good. Sorry, I interjected there.
That's great. Yeah. Okay, so I think we've probably covered that off, Beej. Yeah.
So what's your role in the process at PAM Education?
Okay, so as you see from the slide there, we are the hub to make it all happen. If you like, we're the glue that makes sure that the requirements from the Chinese side map onto the requirements from the UK, both in terms of employer engagement, but also as well, the education and academic standards. And so we basically manage the whole process. Now, one of the reasons, well, probably the main reason we ended up in this situation is there was an awful lot of opportunities. Probably 2 years ago, it was at its height for UK vocational colleges to partner and take it in projects with Chinese, their equivalents in China, And what we saw was basically they didn't work. There was a lot of, I'm not speaking out of turn, I'm sure there was a lot of expectation, there were a lot of promises, there was a lot of potential opportunity around this, but often they all fell through the cracks because there wasn't enough an organisation that was able to bring them both together and understand the difficulties. And really that's how we started off. And then what we've done now is increased the role that we perform so that we cover the whole thing regarding a full training program. So we will set up the curriculum design, the content writing, the training delivery for the program. That has all been managed by Pam. The accreditation, the verification, CPD, QAs, membership bodies, that is all something that we are the glue to bring it together so that the Chinese and UK expectations map onto each other. Equally, what we do is we involve the employers so that they are integrated into the program. Their innovation, like we target with the hubs, and we're working with the Duck and Rice, which is a restaurant in just off Oxford Street that's owned by Alan Yao, who created the Wagamama chain, and they are very, very innovative menus and recipes. So we're working with them to make sure that is included in the learning programs. And then equally, we want to create showcase centres. In the case of Chinese Culinary Arts, that's training kitchens. And again, we've got employers that actually want to build training kitchens but need the capability of working with an organisation that understands how that links with apprenticeships, how they need to work with training providers that are accredited, whether that be FE College or private training providers. So the money is out there, particularly in industries where they've got this shortage. And we've just happened to be taken advantage of an opportunity because of the link with China, of being the organisation that brings everyone together to make the collaboration work.
I think that's a good exposition of your role. There's a question here. Can other training providers, I think that's coming from another college, can they get involved in this?
Yeah, I mean, particularly, yes, they can. Particularly, we've got a meeting with the Trailblazer Group for the hospitality and catering industry this Friday, where we're hoping to get the okay that our standards can be delivered against the level 2 commis chef, the current standards. And then what we will do is we will introduce in September 2019 new standards specifically for the Chinese catering industry. And of course, once we get the okay to do that, they can be delivered anywhere in the country. And because the level 3 qualification is on the RQF, any college is able to deliver it.
That's a good point. Now, that was actually some questions now coming through about the level 3. You've pitched it at level 3. What kind of content? Is it a diploma rather than a certificate?
Yes, it's a diploma. Yeah.
And it's delivered primarily online, as you said, with weekly webinars and practical assessments.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's 2 weekly webinars, an assessment at the end of each term. And then the chefs have to, in the week between the webinars, they have to practice the dishes, make a video of themselves and certain elements of making the dish, and the video of the feedback that gets uploaded. They all have a personal file that links to all their learning and can go through them as they progress through the course.
There is another question, which is, give us some idea of the sort of topics covered by the level 3 diploma.
Okay, so it's 5 modules. There's an introductory short module which basically just gets them into 2 typical Chinese dishes. Then it's broken down into cold dishes. So there's a cold dish range. Then hot dishes, pastry making, dough modeling. So the 5 key elements of Chinese culinary arts are all included.
And Chinese food culture as well.
Yes, sorry, yeah. And an overarching module based on the Chinese food culture. Yeah.
And does that also take account of things like regional and seasonal differences?
Yes, it will be. In the Chinese food culture, we will touch base on the 8 regional cuisines. And when we're writing the qualification, we intentionally made all the skills and the techniques and skills can be generally applied to all regional cuisines. However, the example dishes we selected across all regional cuisines. So, for example, like Chuan dishes that you can find in one particular method, and Lu dishes you can find in another one. So basically, after this a year study, we'll be able to understand the differences between and among each regional cuisine, and as well can apply the basic, well, not basic, it's the essential skills to make dishes.
And there's another question here from Gary. Thanks very much, Gary, for your questions. Is there a work experience element in this? Because that might create problems for people that haven't got, don't live in large conurbations or cities.
No, not at the moment. No, I mean, ideally, for the level 3, ideally they'll be working in a kitchen, and then they'll be able to practice the dishes in their work environment. But that's not a requirement of the course. If you were an enthusiast, you could do the course completely based from your own kitchen.
And the practical assessments, are they all being centred at the moment at Crawley?
Yes, they will. For the first
College.
year, the first year, which is like a prototype year, Beej, the kitchen that's set up is Crawley. So yeah, students will have to go to Crawley, but in year 2, as we progress, we will have different centres set up around the country.
I think that's the key question that is coming here, is about the opportunities to expand the practical assessments to other centres, which don't have to be colleges, because we've got a private training provider attending today as well. So I suppose it's the suitability of the centre for doing the practical assessments.
Yes, and if what we will do is if someone wants, obviously if there's a kitchen available, we will do an inspection and QA them, and there's no reason why. As I said, the first year is all about very much making sure everything is extremely high quality, but certainly as we progress forward, the intention is to offer many different assessment centres.
And you are working with, I think it's Target Catering, isn't it? The equipment people. Yeah. So they've got a worldwide market, haven't they?
Yes, yeah. I mean, they're well established. David Pedret is the MD there. He's a great advocate of induction woks and making the whole kitchen environment much more green and friendly, if I can say that. Yeah.
That's great, thank you. And thanks for the questions, because we're getting loads of questions. I'm trying to field them all at the moment. So how does this all fit with what you were suggesting was happening in terms of changes to vocational training and education?
Well, I mean, what we wanted to do was create a qualification, but at the same time create a progression pathway that enabled people to study Chinese Culinary Arts. And what's not on this picture is the level 2 now has been approved. So there will, from September 2019, be a level 2 qualification. And that's one where we would see that to 16 to 18-year-olds. And if they're not in apprenticeships, they could go to an FE college and do it as in the same way they would do a current level 2 course in the UK. So that will be available to September 2019. But what was key to us is that we gave this choice of how you would study and how you want to progress. So if you, for instance, you got to level 4 and you wanted to take a break and go off and do something else, you could then, of course, go back and do level 5, either in university or back to the normal vocational route. With the awarding organisation we're working with has all this framework in place for a number of qualifications. So, for example, it's very easy for us to adapt at level 5, and you could study a management qualification or entrepreneurship linked to Chinese Culinary Arts. So the whole thing has been set up to give choice both from the employers and, of course, the employees and the chefs.
And there's a follow-up question. I think it's just if you could clarify the link with the possible trailblazer. That's to develop a new apprenticeship standard, isn't it?
It is. Well, as I say, we've been in negotiation. We were told by several FE providers, I must say, that we would have to apply for a new set of standards to deliver our program in Chinese Culinary Arts. But we've had negotiations subsequently with members of the Trailblazer group, and the advice we've been received, actually, because our standards are the first that's been available that meets and can be mapped across onto the current level 2 commis chef standards, because the specification is of such a detail, the belief is that we will be able to, if you like, map the technical specification on the current level 3 qualification to meet the current level 2 commis chef apprenticeship standards, and we will be able to deliver those straight away. And certainly the demand from the employers is that they would want, as soon as that's available, they will have a fair number of current employers that they would want to put on that program. However, having said that, our intention was and still is that we would also then look to introduce new standards and level 3, 4 and 5 to do apprenticeships and at higher degree level. And that, although obviously timing is very difficult, it could be 6 months, could be 18 months, but we've got a meeting with the Trailblazer Group, as I said, on Friday, and our intention is to get a realistic time frame about when that can be introduced.
And would these qualifications also be recognised in China?
Yes. Yes, yeah, it will be. It's because of the we are in negotiation with the Tianjin Municipal Education Commission, and also because the whole project is through a Chinese national project called Luban Workshop. Yeah, so then there is a national office at the moment that trying to promote and manage Luban Workshop all over the world. So through that office and also through the national framework, that we are hoping that this qualification will be recognized by employers across the country.
That's useful. Thanks very much for that. Thank you.
Yeah.
So this is a good example. As I said, one of the key learnings from this whole project is how important it is to have a holistic, collaborative, multidisciplinary approach. So you've pulled all these different. Can you say a little bit about some of these partners?
Yeah, I mean, so basically the original, the first column there, it was very important that we had the partners in place to deliver a high quality program that meant the whole thing was real, and if you like it. And so we needed a Chinese College group. So the first thing we sought was an outstanding grade 1 provider to partner us, and we selected Chinese College group. We had obviously the original process was started by the Tianjin Second School of Cuisine, which is now, by the way, subsequently merged and can also offer HE provision in vocational learning. The Tianjin Food Group is the supporters of the overall project. Target Associates is a business that develops Chinese equipment and manufactures woks and other different types of equipment here in the UK. We've as part of the whole process, we've always involved the Chinese associations. And the main one that we're working with at the moment is the Southeast Overseas Chinese Association. And what they've done for us is they've brought all the restaurant owners together, because there's a lot of, if you like, misinformation that's put out there. And by getting the support of the associations, and particularly a guy called Tony Law, who's the head of that, what we've found is they've been able to deal with the negative, if you like, views and maybe lack of positivity that is there from the Chinese industry. And what we've seen is a very big change in their attitude towards taking on board staff, towards the potential that their business can be saved. I mean, we've had 2 or 3 businesses actually come to us and said, but for this qualification, we would have closed our business down. So it's really important that we involve those people. And Source Associates, what we wanted was a company that's independent, if you like, but is formed by real industry experts that have had many, many years with working within the industry. And some of you may know Mike Mounfield, who's the head of that. And we've worked very closely with them to make sure that the technical terms, the processes, the equipment, everything, it meets the standards and requirements that have adopted here in the education training programs of chefs in the UK. So we wanted that independent source. And then, as I said, because we did invest in a marketing campaign, and probably to give you an idea of the cost, we probably spent around about £8,000 on it. to do a social media campaign to advertise in the launch of the program, and also some events we've got coming up. It was very rewarding, because we actually have now got to the big names, if you like, within the Chinese industry in the UK. Alan Yao, as I said, he owns a couple of restaurants now. He sold the Wagamama chain and a couple of others. He and his organisation immediately expressed an interest to want to be involved. There's the Oxford Cultural Collective, which one of their, I think its presidents is Ken Hom, and other celebrity chefs. They want to be involved in the development of the program. How do you say that? Qin He Yang?
Yeah, Qin He Huang.
Qin He Wang, who's a celebrity chef that's been on, I think, the Saturday morning breakfast and things like that. She's got huge numbers of followers, and she definitely wants to be involved. What she said was, I want to be involved in two things. One is to create change the perception that the Chinese food industry is only for Chinese-born people. She wants to create as what we do, is the pathway for UK people, and she wants to highlight the value of nutrition in Chinese food. Anthony Wang is the first, I think, Michelin restaurant owner. He's got a couple of very high-profile restaurants in central London. He wants to be part of the programme. And Bill Brogan, who's head up several visits of university-based organisations to China, because the universities, because of the large number of Chinese students attending, they want to introduce Chinese food to the menu, but in Bill's words, we can't find enough staff to cook it, so we can't do it. So again, Bill and his team that he's working with in the universities that are part of it. And as I said, there's been numerous restaurant owners, and I think the most rewarding comments that we've had is that this is what they've been waiting for. And as I said earlier, if this program is successful, it will mean we can keep our restaurant open.
I think that's a key thing that you've stressed, is that survival of a sector, which I think has got messages not only for survival but for growth, and got applications across quite a wide range of sectors. So if people want to find out a little bit more about this, they can contact you directly, yeah?
Yes, contact us directly. It's russell.xiaoli@pameducation.com is the email.
We'll make sure that we have those details at the end and sent off certainly to the people that have participated. We've had some questions in the course of which I hopefully have answered. I don't know if there are any other questions from participants, but I think one comment I would like to make is that, if you're not necessarily thinking about working with one particular part of the catering and hospitality sector, but maybe another aspect of the service sector, I think it's those messages about, first of all, spending time with the employers, actually finding out what their needs are and what their demand is, articulating that in the language that they don't use. They use words like survival, they use words like not having enough trained chefs or losing customers, and we want to convert that into the words of education and training and standards. That's where I think us as providers are critical. But I think a key message that you've also put over is that quality has got to be assured. This is going to be a quality training program, a qualification that's worth something. It's got some currency, and that comes through that work with employers, working with an awarding body, working with other providers. It's that multidisciplinary approach, Russell, isn't it?
Yes, it definitely is. I mean, not just in this, but the message we've got is that they want, the employers that want to engage in, particularly in apprenticeships, want to know they've got a quality training program that sits with it. Yeah.
And I mean, it's not just about, budding Chinese chefs and restaurant owners. It's about, more generally, people that might want to improve their understanding and knowledge of Chinese cooking.
Yes, yeah, of course, yeah, and I'm sure there's.
So it can be done from the safety of your own kitchen.
Yeah.
Any other points or questions you might want to raise? I'm just looking at questions, Marek. Have you got any more questions?
No, there's nothing else I can see. I'll just put it back out to the attendees again. Any final questions before we close the recording down? Certainly. In fact, Beej, I can be led on when you'd like me to close the...
Well, I think just before we close the recording, we might have some comments after the recording, but just before we close the recording, can I just thank our two presenters. Thanks very much for sharing your experience, your knowledge, and certainly expertise in this area. And can I thank the participants for the range of questions they've already posed. and hopefully you'll follow this up by having a look at the work that PAM Education has done with Chinese Culinary Arts. So we can close the recording. Thanks very much, everyone.
Thank you, Beej. Thank you.
Excellent. Thanks a lot, everybody. And for everyone who's listening, certainly, again, those who are listening on the video recordings, please get in touch. Get in touch with yourselves, get in touch with Pam if there's any questions. And also, if there's any projects that you're working on that you'd like to share with us, then we'd all be very interested to hear about that. So thank you very much, all. I'm just going to close the recording down.